Siblings also affect individual development. The birth of a sibling changes the whole family dynamic because that individual has relationships with each member in the family as well. So the birth of a sibling can be stressful for the older children in the family, particularly when those older children are actually younger. So when parents, it's also going to be stressful if parents are ignoring their older child's needs. So one of the best pieces of advice that I got when I was having Rex was to make sure that Lenny, my oldest, was taken care of before Rex. So before I needed to nurse Rex, make sure that Lenny was all set to go with a snack or a toy or something like that. And I think that was really good advice. One of the benefits, though, of a sibling's birth is that fathers tend to become more involved in the family. They become more involved with the older children. Mom has to devote a lot of time typically to the newborn, and so someone's got to take care of the older child. So this makes dad be even more involved. We see that if parents are very responsive to all the other children in the family, that typically the birth of a sibling doesn't make things too stressful for the other children. So sibling relationships tend to be more harmonious when siblings are the same sex. So girls and girls get along, and then boys and boys will typically get along better than a girl and a boy. We also see that relationships become more harmonious when younger children approach adolescence. And part of the reason for this is because siblings start to perceive one another more as equals. We know that parents can contribute to the quality of sibling relationships, both directly from parenting itself, but also indirectly from the quality of the parents' relationships with each other. So when parents are affectionate and caring and responsive to all of their children as well as to each other, siblings tend to get along better. People usually always love talking about birth order. And you guys, the research actually doesn't show a whole lot of differences in terms of birth order having an effect on development. What we do see is very generalized, so this isn't going to be true across the board. But what we see is that parents of firstborn children tend to have higher expectations. They're also going to be more affectionate and more punitive toward their firstborns. Those of you with children, if you think back to when your first child was really young and some of the expectations maybe that you had for them, I think it's always a little bit ridiculous, especially for me anyway, when I think back to some of the things that, I would expect Lenny to be able to do. It was just, now I'm like, what was I thinking with that? For example, when we would go to church on Sundays and he would not be able to sit still in the pew and he'd be kind of noisy during Mass, and I'd get so frustrated with him. But now I realize that, everything he was doing, it was really age appropriate. But parents do tend to have higher expectations with their firstborns. Parents, they're very enthusiastic. They're very excited about parenting with their firstborns, but they're often inexperienced. So this explains some of these differences. We do see that firstborns tend to have higher IQs. They're more likely also to go to college. Firstborns are also more willing to conform to parents' and adults' requests. Later born children tend to be less concerned about pleasing parents and adults. I don't know if any of you have siblings, if you're the older child and you have siblings who are younger. Lots of times, the older children will complain, well, why didn't my parents go as easy on me as they did with my younger brothers and sisters, for example? So it's always kind of funny to see the differences. When it comes to only children are found to succeed more in school and to have higher levels of intelligence, leadership, autonomy, and maturity. So contrary to a popular stereotype, only children really aren't like spoiled brats. Instead, only children are, for the most part, much like children who grew up with siblings.